Do do do. We're live, man. We are live.
Are we live? Very
Hell
cool.
yeah. We actually started this conversation sooner. We've been talking for like past 15 minutes, and I've
Yeah.
been sort of trying to rally up my voice. Been sick as fuck for a couple of days, or more than a week since I came back from THU. Actually, been
Right.
feeling like absolute crap, dude.
I'm sorry to
You
hear
as
that.
well, right? You've been having some flu issues too.
Yeah, but I think I'm through through the thick of it now. I just jinxed myself by saying that. But yeah, I think it's gonna be
Yeah, there's something going on with fucking LA. Like everyone is coughing and shit. It's just, I don't know. It's I
um,
guess the just like a slight change of weather. It's like you have those nights that are just slightly colder. That's making everyone just like a pussy almost. Like
sure,
fuck.
sure.
I'm sick
I,
now.
I think that's just LA in general.
How have you been, man? Like how you doing?
Good. It's just I'm trying to keep myself as busy as possible, but busy with the right things, you know?
Right.
Like you said, we signed on all of what 15 minutes ago, and I'm struggling with this piece, and I fucking love it because it means that it is adding that new wrinkle to my brain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's forcing me to slow down a little bit and measure everything. Whereas before, if this was a regular Spider-Man kind of guy standing on a corner of a building, I'd have been done with this like 20 minutes ago. But because I'm in an uncomfortable space, that's exactly what I mean by trying to keep myself busy in the best way possible, right?
Yeah, you're doing the stuff that I hate doing, like starting from scratch or just building like ideas by sketching. It's something
Yeah.
that I'm absolutely terrible at.
This is probably the worst way to do it for me is like have an understanding of the composition and then building the thing around that composition without having to design it first.
Right.
Because it's like, oh fuck, now I have to accommodate these horns, I have to accommodate, this the way they're running, the way, all those things rather than
Yeah.
saying, and on top of it, it's an alien animal too. So like I'm designing on the fly and it's just the worst thing ever.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's you have to understand anatomy, you have to understand animal movement. Like there has to be some kind of idea behind it before you even step into that, design realm. So
Oh yeah.
that definitely applies. But before we jump into this,
Yeah.
let me maybe introduce who you are, or
Yeah.
actually allow you to introduce yourself, and maybe talk a little bit about who you are and what do you do, and
Yeah, sure.
all that
Sure.
stuff, all the goodies.
Yeah, my name is Eric Canete. I am a concept artist, and currently I work for Riot Games on the world building team.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I feel like a complete scam artist whenever I say that out loud because I kind of accidentally fallen ass backwards into this job. I never had any sort of aspirations to be a concept artist until I became one and suddenly said that's my title, right? I got my start. I actually wanted to be a comic book artist in the very beginning. I wasn't cut out to do it. So I ended up in animation as an environment designer and then eventually a storyboard artist, and then ended up doing comics for a few years, but went back to animation, this time or doing more environment design. And then from there, yeah, just kept doing more animations and storyboards, and then eventually got into video games.
So did you have like artistic background? Did you go to like
No,
artistic
zero,
schools? Anyone from your
zero.
family that
No,
introduced
no,
this
no.
to you?
Yeah, no. My biggest composition, or excuse me, competition, and the person that inspired me to become an artist was my cousin Ferdinand, who introduced me to Star Wars. But outside of that, no formal training. I got my very first job when I was 17 years old, in animation. I ghosted for a guy for about a year, freelance.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, that guy, unfortunately, he got sick, but the crew kind of knew that he wasn't doing everything by himself. So they were saying, "Hey, listen, while you're down, can we please hire the kid that backs you up?" And he was kind enough to recommend me. And like I said, I've
Cool.
been ass backwards into every job.
Well, that's usually how it works, right? You sort of like bust your ass for someone, and or you work with someone, you get mentored by someone, or and a lot of work come through references, or through friendships that you make working on your first job. So
That's
that's
true.
that's that's happened a lot. That's
That's true.
happened to me. My first job was through references, really. Well,
Oh, is it right?
first real job. I've been doing some freelance by just like being discovered online. And I was still a shit artist. I
Sure.
was doing like crap work for like crappy companies, like small business and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I think we all start somewhere.
Yeah.
But my first real job was through like people that I knew from forums. Like back when I started. Like
Yeah.
when did you start? When was your like first year of work?
Uh,
Like how many years ago was that?
I would say I got my start when I worked on Aeon Flux. That was my very first job that's of note. So that was 2019, 20?
19 Hold on. 1920?
No, no, no. I was 19 or
Oh, I mean,
20.
what year was that?
What year? 1994, 95, somewhere
Damn.
around.
Oh yeah. So you started like a decade before I started. There you go. So you know those times where you didn't have Facebook, you didn't have YouTube,
Yeah,
Twitter, and all
yeah.
sorts of things that now
Forums.
allow you just to connect with everyone and
Yeah,
showcase your work to
yeah,
everybody almost instantaneously.
yeah.
Back then there was just forums, right? If well, you when you started, it was just like I think
No.
internet was what, dial-up or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It still made that obnoxious dial-up noise, you know.
Floppy
Every time.
disks
Yeah,
sent to like
yeah,
clients and stuff like
dude.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've met a couple of people on forums. I used to post on like this big Polish forum that still exists. It's called max3d.pl. There was obviously Sigen forums where Craig Mullins used to post his sketches. The big old
Holy crap.
speed painting thread that had like
Sure.
fucking 5,000 pages.
Sure, sure, sure.
A lot of people that I know from there, like David Levy and all of those guys used to post there.
Yeah,
That's how I know them because I knew
yeah.
like, oh, this is that guy, oh, this is that guy. And then when you talk with those guys in real life, it's like, oh, you were in Siegen. What was your nickname? Oh, you were this guy. Oh my god.
Oh, that's so cool, man.
Yeah, it's so funny. Um, but yeah, what I was getting at, anyways. Yeah. When I started, I knew those guys from forums and accidentally like I was doing some client work and I think it was People Can Fly that hired me. The boss of People Can Fly saw my work and he was like, "Oh, who did this image?" And a friend of mine was like, "I know that guy," and that's
Yeah,
how it started. So
yeah.
same was with Naughty Dog. My friend Hanno Hagedorn worked at Naughty Dog as a senior 3D artist, a character artist, and I've released some work, and he was looking at it, and CEO, one of the presidents of Naughty Dog, saw that like, oh, do you know that guy? Yeah, I do. That's how it went down. Um,
Easy.
yeah.
It
So
seems
it
like
all starts very
you're
similar to
destined.
us, right?
Yeah.
So you worked at free. When did you decide to sort of like switch from comic book area to concept art, because there must have been a point where that happened, right?
No, it was. I'm telling you, man, I'm not being tongue in cheek about falling ass backwards into every job. Everything that ever came onto my plate as far as work is concerned, I just kind of either bullshitted my way through or just made my best, did my best when I was working, you know?
Right.
People would say, "Hey, have you ever done this before?" And I'm all like, "No, but I think I can do that," you know? And then once you're in, I've just been really lucky to have those internal mentors that go, "Oh my gosh, if this kid stays here, he's going to burn the production down by accident because he's such a weak link," you know? So we better give him some of our time and train him up. And so, yeah, I would just be all ears. It was the best sort of university education, and I got paid as I went, you know?
Right, right.
Very fortunate. So there was no plan. It was started off as animation first, then to comics, went back to animation, and then back to comics, then back to anime, and then finally the video game stuff now.
So looking back at all the years, it's what, like over 20 years at this point,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah,
easily,
yeah.
easily over 20 years, 20 something.
Hmm.
Um, what do you consider to be like the best part, or do you have any, you worked animations, you worked a little bit of everything almost at this
Yeah.
point. Do you have any favorite style of work that you've done, or are you just sort of like jack of all trades, like I'm gonna do anything that is just cool?
Yeah, I think because I didn't go to school, I considered all of those stops as like classes, terms, right?
Right, right.
So every place that I ever went into, I would always look like, working on Aeon Flux for the very first time. They worked at it in San Francisco, and they worked at it inside a giant warehouse
Mm-hmm.
where there was a different productions going on all at the same time, and a lot of it was for like MTV or commercials.
Right.
So it was this practical place, it was pre-digital, so I could go into any department and there would be a Burger King commercial there where they would do the paper mache, where they would stop motion paper mache, it would crush, and then I would just ask, I go, hey, what are you guys doing here? And they would allow me to sort of play around. So it was the best sort of education. It was like every department had there's something to do. You multiply that by like you said, the 20 plus years of a career. I've always been in that space of like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to go ask somebody who does know what they're doing, you know?
You didn't shy away from just like asking people for
No,
advice.
why? Why? Especially if you find the right people who are happy to share, the talented people who have the skill set that you can use at any given point, like the bar, like I want to
Yeah.
get good, and that guy's willing to teach me and has the time to teach me. I'm like, why? I'm not scared. The worst they can say is no, and I'll be like, okay. You know?
Yeah, that's true. I've noticed that there's like different kinds of artists. One which is just like get really in your, not in your face, but they're like not shying away from like asking constantly like for help and trying to sort of like figure out things, and then
Hmm.
obviously take it to their own level. But then there's also artists that sort of like they always sort of sit in their own cubicle and not really socialize enough to understand or like try to learn.
Sure,
Take,
sure.
God damn it,
Yeah.
taking advantage of the environment they are in. I think I
Yeah.
was that kind of artist for the longest time, honestly.
Well, you didn't take advantage.
Yeah, I remember I know Eitan Zana and Shadi would tell a lot of those stories. Actually, Shadi would just like laugh at it at this point where I would lock my computer always, and like whenever someone come and ask question, I would just like almost brush it away. It's like, oh yeah, I just do it this way. It's easy. Fucking why you don't understand that? Like no explanations. Like, oh, you're an idiot. You don't understand how it's done. Then well, sucks for you.
Yeah, yeah. Where do you think that came from, man? Why was why did you have a shut off nature to let's say that environment?
I think honestly, it comes down to personality and and sort of like I guess social anxiety and awkwardness. Like we all have a little bit of that. Not
Mm-hmm.
all of us are the same. Obviously, there are some artists that are super open and really easy to sort of like talk. Like Shadi is the best person in terms of like I don't know if you know Shadi Safadi.
I don't.
Um,
Mm-mm.
he's like probably socially most open person I've ever met.
Okay.
He's like he can talk with everyone, but he's
Yeah.
also the kind of guy that will like if he doesn't like you, he will really fucking tell you. He doesn't shy away from just being real with people,
Sure. Sure.
and really brash at
Yeah.
times. But he has this very open, very interesting personality, and a lot of people that are listening to this probably already know who Shadi is. But yeah, um, but I remember like him, trying to get as much information out of me, and I would just always like shy away. I think what changed it for me personally, because
Yeah.
I think I always been sort of like a little bit of awkward.
Uh-huh.
It might be just the trait from the society that I came from, like
Uh-huh.
Poland and socialist Poland, and like everything sort of like backwards there. Um, like coming to America was a big culture shock, and understanding like the social fabric of this country,
Sure.
and all of those things just take time. If you're coming from, I don't know, France or Germany or any of those more developed countries, it's a little different. And maybe if you're coming from Poland and some of the Eastern European countries now, if you
Yeah.
grew up in like later times,
Yeah.
it's a little easier to understand because everything is so connected.
Right.
But from where I come from, the society I come from was just very closed, very sort of unhealthy in a way. It was very
Yeah.
sort of like communist society where people would just like rat on one another. It was just like everyone was lazy. Like it was just fucking
Interesting.
weird.
Yeah.
Um, maybe that made me a little weird. Also, my own personalities too. I think
Yeah.
what changed it for me was the moment I started teaching and the moment
Yeah.
I started doing the jujitsu.
Okay.
I haven't been doing jujitsu for like a fucking forever. I need to get back to it.
Yeah.
It's two reasons why. Once, and you can talk about it too. I mean, I don't know if you teach, but you definitely have your own live streams. You do Twitch streams every week, right? Or a couple
Yep.
of times a week, right?
Hmm.
I'll post the Twitch handle in the description
Actually.
after this. So definitely go there and subscribe, people, because his Eric's streams are fucking rad as fuck.
Yeah.
But anyways, um, it's like when you teach or when you have those conversations, when you actually share everything you do or like at least parts of what you do, you're
Yeah.
sort of like opening up this sort of very sacred area of yourself where
Mhm.
you've gathered that knowledge over past, like, I don't know, like if you work 10 years, it's 10 years of your experiences and trials and errors that you've made to get to the point where you're in. And some people get there faster, so for some people it take longer,
Sure.
but generally speaking, it's a sum of your experiences that make you and make your knowledge, and it's very very normal to feel sacred about it. Like you don't want to
Right.
share, and you might be thinking to yourself, oh, some kind of schmuck gonna take my knowledge and fucking run with it. And that's
Yeah.
what happens. Like kids soak that knowledge and fucking get really good really fast, and
Yeah.
we all sort of like put ourselves out of work doing that
Sure.
in a
Sure.
way. But what it does to you, it's just like kicks you out from that comfort zone where it's like you've done a lot of things to learn to get to that point, and you might be plateauing without even knowing. But the moment you start teaching, you realize, okay, like it's already out. I have to change something with me. I have
Yeah.
to sort of like start expressing my artistic needs in a different way. You start to
Yeah.
feel that, and also you open up a little more. And one thing I'm pretty sure you know that as well is like the moment you start teaching, you actually learn from your
Yeah.
students. Like your students
Absolutely.
actually teach you more than you teach them,
Yep.
just by the fact that stuff that you're trying to teach them, you have
Yeah.
to rehearse to yourself, and then you start to see the holes in your own knowledge and sort of
Oh,
like
absolutely.
start filling those out. So is that work the same for you? Like, I mean, knowing you, I mean, I met you at THU personally. I don't think we had the chance to talk before, and maybe once or twice on Instagram or something.
Yep.
Um, but I've been following your work. I saw you a couple of times at Riot Games, and
Yeah.
from what I could tell, you're very sort of like open kind of person, right? You're not
Yeah.
super socially awkward or anything like that. So, um, that does like sharing knowledge come easy to you, or how does it work for you personally?
I'm a fucking vampire. I'm more of a
you
I'm
soak
more of
you
a
soak
I
knowledge from
siphon
everyone.
knowledge, I siphon knowledge from
I come
people.
from Transylvania.
I don't, it took a while for yeah, yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. It's a the cultural background, the nuance, like I don't know, it was strange for me. There was at some point I remember getting my very first job, and with the same attitude that you were talking about, people didn't want to share their knowledge because I'm going to give my job, this 19, 20-year-old kid's going to come and take my job.
yeah,
And then later on, the more I realized, it dawned on me that because I was the beneficiary of people giving away the knowledge, I never was the guy to hold on to it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like I understood the importance of like you give me this, and the only way I can repay you back is to give it to the next generation, beyond me. And to me, it was always a concept. I was never afraid of the next guy because all that did was it encouraged me. It actually challenged me to keep myself sharp.
yeah. It
Because
kicks you out from that comfort zone, right?
exactly, like if my fear is this guy's going to get so much better than me, then I'd better do something so he doesn't, right? So I'd always be on the path of learning and trying to get better, and always like what's on the horizon to try to get myself into a better space so that I'm just as competitive regardless of, technology. Like for me to have done research in early or late 90s to what's available to the kids nowadays, God, I feel like a fucking old man, but to, what's immediately available to people nowadays as far as technique, approach, and application, it's so much easier, right?
Oh
But
yeah.
but that
Hell
stuff's
yeah.
not limited to them. That's not exclusive. That's also available to me. So why don't I go get that? So I was never really like awkward because the only way that I could again, I didn't come from a school, so I had to get out of my awkward stage. I had to go and
Yeah.
find a way to talk to people, or else I was gonna fall behind.
Yeah, you get kicked out from that zone where you feel safe and all great. And the problem is, if you stick in that zone for for too long, it might be too late to get out of it. And
Oh yeah.
I've seen this happening, especially in the film industry.
Uh-huh.
There's quite a bunch of artists that been working in the film industry in illustration, and they never moved on with times. Like some of the artists, they're just like, because union gives you good benefits in order to work in films, you have to be in a union, or you had to be for the longest time.
Uh-huh.
So artists that been working in the industry for the longest time felt very safe.
Yeah.
The same goes to video games, pretty much everything else out
Yeah.
there. It's so much more harder to get work these days than it used to be before. But then
Hmm.
again, it's so much easier to actually learn things. I mean, fuck, like if I would want to learn something now,
Yeah.
I'll find all the resources on earth, like
Dude.
in one click.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
crazy.
Tips of your fingers. You could just be like, how do I render skin? Like, that's 500 videos right there. Pick the
Yeah,
one that works for you,
most of
right?
them are crappy, but
Yeah,
still,
yeah,
it still
yeah.
kind of gives you something to
Sure.
to go with. And obviously obviously there's so many places where you can grab content that is paid, but it just gives you um, like the top quality content where you just learn from the best artists as
Sure.
well. That's
Sure.
available everywhere, obviously,
Sure.
Learn Squared.
Yeah.
Um, um, but there's like other schools that are available as well. And yeah, it's so much easier to get into that zone. And I think the fact is, like, if you are sort of like a little awkward and um and have problems with sharing that, it might actually be dooming for you in the long run, because like this is not a forgiving industry. I mean, you've been in this industry for over 20 years, and you've seen all the changes, right? From
Yeah.
paper to
To
2D,
digital.
3D, now it's VR.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of
Well,
those
here,
things.
listen, to your point right now, right? If all the information is readily available and it's readily available to everybody, and the only weakness that you have in your game is your inability to communicate and be social, then you're going to lose, right?
Yeah.
Because everything is even all of a sudden. Yeah, sure, there's skill set, accessibility, and all that kind of stuff might be challenging, but once the good stuff gets out there and you incorporate that into your actual craft, what's missing, if the thing that's missing, you've identified it as your inability to socialize, interact like a regular human being, actually be charming and personable. If you can't get that in line, you've lost, because everything is everything has been established, so the ground is a little bit more even.
Yeah, it's true. Like there's less obstacles on the way,
Yeah.
and it just comes down to your focus, your work ethic, and then personality.
Yep.
You
Yep.
can be the best artist, but if it's really hard to work with you, that's
Yeah.
gonna be a problem,
Weren't
a
you the
big
one
one.
that mentioned that? I think what is it? Was it part of your either a talk or something like that, or maybe we ended up talking about it because people want to work with people that are good to work with, who are also good, right?
Yeah, I've mentioned this on my talk at THU, where
Okay.
I was talking about all the projects that I worked on, and one of the things, I think it was also David Levy. He mentioned this on his talk as well.
Hmm.
Where from the best work you remember, the projects that you remember the most are those ones that had the best people to work with.
Right.
It's really that. I like
Yeah.
my favorite projects were those where I worked with friends, like people that I really enjoy working with,
Absolutely. I'm the
and
same.
most of those projects were actually crappy.
Yeah. 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 That's a good
You know,
point.
they were not the best movies or video games that went out there. I think the only exception, I mean, it's an exception, but it still sort of like falls into that role as well. Would be The Last of Us,
Uh-huh.
because I had a blast working with those people. I had a blast working with Bruce Straley, who's an amazing person to work with. I think
Yeah.
I've learned the most out of him
Yeah.
personally in terms of like game development and how to look at storytelling and whatnot.
Yeah.
But also like Aaron Lemonic and Eitan Zana, Shadi Safadi, all of those guys, John Sweeney,
Mm-hmm.
Nick Jindra, the good old Natty Dog crew. I've
Yeah.
learned so much from those guys. Not only just like working with them did open up like I did open up because uh, it was just like very cool to not only socialize with them, just have fun. We would pull pranks all the time at one
Mhm.
another. A lot of dick drawings, fucking a lot of dick drawings.
Nice.
We actually had this chat, like the sort of like a company chat. I was company chat or no? Well, I can't remember what was that, but we had like this sort of like personal private chat that we
Yeah.
used,
Yeah.
and it had like ability to draw pictures, and
Yeah.
like every time we would go for a coffee or something, we
Yeah.
would not type in like let's go for a coffee, but
Yeah.
would like draw like an image, but it was just like fucking nasty shit, like the most nasty shit you could ever imagine.
It's
Like
so,
dick sliced in half and then like
oh,
coffee dripping on it.
freaking brutal.
And that was just like a cue, like let's go for a coffee. But
Yeah.
before we would just decide to go, like everyone would just post an image, like a small image, a
So
lot of
good.
dicks and shit. Like
That's good.
nasty stuff.
Yeah,
Not
but
safe for
that
work
was
at
part of
all.
the camaraderie though, right? That was
Exactly.
part of the, yeah.
That's what made like the memories. Like I remember that more than any of the images that I made for the game,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's what matters. Like at the end of the day, working with the right people,
Yep.
and
Yep.
sort of like yeah, I guess the social skills do matter. If you work remotely, they matter less. You can
Hmm.
still sort of like if you're really socially awkward and have problems with having proper conversations, because there are people like you talk with them and it's just like what the fuck did you just say, like no, I
Yeah.
didn't mean that, I meant something else, but it just came
Yeah.
out that way, you know
Yeah.
or things like that. I remember like having a call with client, and I sometimes have trouble finding the right words, and I'm not a native English speaker.
Yeah.
And I think it was a couple of years ago when I was still sort of like learning, and I remember like they asked me something, and I was like, "This shit's not gonna fly" or something like. I've replied like, "This is not gonna fly with me,"
Yeah.
and they were like fucking shocked, like, "What? What did you just say?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
that's not what I meant.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't find a better way to say it. I'm
That's
not
so good.
English, blah blah blah.
So
But
good.
it was just like almost borderline offensive the way it came
Yeah.
out. Like
Yeah.
it came out like, you bitches better fucking listen to me. It came out this
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
basically.
I like it because you took that phrase out for a spin when you're like, oh, that didn't land very
Yeah.
well. That's so
it
good.
it went like from like normal conversation to like, oh my god, I'm gonna get fired like in a minute. Um, yeah. So yeah, so that happens. Yeah, I mean, knowledge is available everywhere right now. It's so much
Yeah.
easier to get everything, and like being able to have a conversation with people and not be an asshole. It's
Yeah.
one of those things that start to matter a lot.
Yeah.
And I think the only part that worries me about that is just like how sensitive the environment has become in terms of like what you say and how people react to it and how
Oh, true.
personally they take stuff. But
True. True.
that's like a separate topic. But
Yeah.
otherwise, is yeah, it's I think that matters.
You said something earlier though, is like all the information is out there and easier to get, but also the wrong information is out there too, you know?
Yeah,
The less than ideal version of how to do something because the person who's giving out the information, just because it's easy to go out, it's easy to communicate, it doesn't necessarily mean it's very good, especially when you're trying to
true,
learn how to
true.
do something. Some people skip over the foundation. They skip over they go immediately into stylization, and you go like, I don't even know how we got here. You're
Yeah,
effectively asking me to drive a race car. You haven't taught me how to do the simplest task of learning how to drive a street, or drive down the street. You're asking me to do high performance things, and as a person who wants to learn, I want to emulate it, right? And then
yeah,
this guy goes and tries to get, let's say, a job using that emulation, but not having the foundation by which where that emulation comes from. And then you ask them and you go, and they're like, I don't know, that's just how I learned it. And you go, wow, that's so backwards. It caters to a level of sort of like this incestual look to everything. And I use that term very in a more tongue-in-cheek way, right? Like
hmm,
when I see art that's being produced now, I go, I think I know why you're doing that, but I think you're doing that because you saw it being done by X, Y, or Z. And that's across the board, not just in concept art, but also in animation and in comic books and just everything. You go like, I don't think you
yeah.
understand where that comes from. You just saw these people do it and you never really asked why they're doing it?
I think people like shortcuts, and I think we're in the era of like, because everything is so available and you have
Yeah,
all those apps that make shit super easy for you. Life
yeah,
is very easy right now.
yeah,
Like the way we're connected, the way you have those apps that you can use to order food and
yeah,
get Uber and all of that stuff just makes everything easy, and everything comes pretty easy. But
yeah,
then when it comes down to like learning stuff and really becoming good at something,
yeah.
you cannot bypass very certain steps that you
No,
still have to take. There's a
absolutely.
foundation that you have to learn.
Yeah,
There's a practice, the amount of practice that you have to go with
yeah,
in order to be really good at it, and you
yeah.
just cannot bypass that. You can make shortcuts where you find good material or a good teacher or mentor that will help you and
Mm-hmm.
make it easier, especially today. Today is so easy to make it happen compared to, let's say, when you were learning. I
Yeah,
mean, you have no, much like me, you don't have academic experience. And by academic, I mean a school
yeah,
that has teachers that know what the fuck they are talking about. I'm not
yeah,
talking about fine arts schools where you might have one or two teachers if you're lucky,
yeah,
or if you go to like a really good atelier, then yeah, of course you're gonna have amazing artists. But if you go to like an average fine arts school, most likely you're gonna have some idiot teaching you contemporary art.
yeah,
In most cases, that's the case, especially
yeah.
in Europe. In Poland, that's almost every fucking school.
Oh, is that really? Okay.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know how it is now, but back when I was learning, it's like you have those jokes about starving artists and artists like fucking dressing like idiots and doing crap. Like that's basically what they teach you. And there's
Really?
some schools that they teach you like a good foundation, but
Yeah.
they only do it for like um, a short amount of time, and then they ask you to do like random shit. It's just crazy.
A
But
weird
yeah,
career.
like from the time you come and the times I was learning,
Yeah.
I only had forums and people posting shit. I had to figure
Yeah.
this shit on my own.
Yeah.
Same with
Sure.
you, right? Same with
Yeah.
you. You had it
Absolutely.
worse. You didn't even like the time you started like fucking dial
Dude.
up and
No,
not that
no. I
many
mean,
forums around.
that the thing is, the technology might have been its early stages, but how did you upload any? You couldn't upload anything to a forum.
No,
It was the most pixelated, lowest resolution ever. So even that wasn't going to be very helpful for you. So the best thing that I always had an opportunity to do was like, you remember the Cinefex magazine?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Little that's all I would do is go to the store like after I've saved up enough for it because it was pretty pricey back in the day, and I would just pour through all of the stuff that was in there. Like
Right.
how did they do that fucking ship in Titanic? How did they do all the stuff from the fourth, fifth Alien movie? I just remember pouring through those and looking through whenever there was concept art, I would see like, oh shit, okay, that makes sense. How did they do the technique of those highlights in again, everything was still being done traditionally with markers
Right.
and acrylic and all that stuff. So I was looking through all of that, man. So yeah, yeah, it was a lot harder.
Yeah, it was not easy. I remember I mean, I've told that story many times. The first time I really came aware to the fact that you can work in this industry and actually
Hmm.
make a living,
Mm-hmm.
was when I saw like a making of Tomek Baginski Cathedral. That was back in 2003. It was like a short animated movie about
Mm-hmm.
a guy that walks into a cathedral and becomes part of it.
Mm-hmm. Holy
It's
shit.
just made out of roots and whatnot.
Uh-huh.
It was pretty cool. But I saw like this making off on national TV where like I saw people drawing on fucking tablets and shit. What the fuck is this?
Like
This is
what the
amazing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I briefly knew what that company does, but I was like, to me, watching, like, looking at, magic cards or
Yeah.
illustrations that were done for like Dungeons and Dragons and
Oh,
stuff.
sure.
To
Sure.
me, it was like, oh, this is cool illustrations, but I never thought like you actually get paid for it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it was
yeah.
like, oh, those people are doing cool stuff on their free time, like I do.
Yeah. No, I remember
Never consider it a job.
for me, when we first saw the Star Wars, when I told you my start was like Star Wars, you know what I mean? That's what really key. And the reason why, because when my cousins and I were watching it, they pointed out all the cool spaceships and just you
Mm-hmm.
name it. And they said, "Oh, by the way, did you know somebody had to draw that first?" And I was like, "What? What does that mean?" You know? And because one of the guys who worked on the original trilogy came from our village in the Philippines,
Mm-hmm.
he, so I was like, oh yeah, that guy grew up in Cebu, and he's now, he draws, and that's what some of the stuff that ends up getting produced for the movies. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so I got cued into that very early, that all these movies somehow started with small little sketches, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy when you learn that. It's just like it blows your mind. And now today,
Yeah,
like you go to the cinema today, it's like, oh, this is it's CGI. Like it just loses its magic.
yeah, 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 absolutely.
Although,
Yeah.
like these days, fuck, like there's some CGI that tricks you. The new Apes movie, like you cannot
Oh,
tell it's a
oh
CGI.
yeah.
It's fucking
I
crazy.
I know when something is, as far as, a heavy CGI movie is concerned, like let's say the example that you just used, I know it's effective when I forget that I'm looking at a CGI.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
when it works the best, when I'm just not paying attention, I'm just looking at the performances, and yeah, I forget the whole thing is made out of CGI.
So how did you? I mean, do you remember during your career? Was there any kind of mentor you had that helped you out with your learning curves? I guess like somewhere along the way you've discovered Noman DVDs like pretty much everyone else, and these days it's just easy to pretty much find
Yeah,
material to learn from. But
yeah.
like, what was for you like the early days of learning?
Um, for me, it was in every position that I was ever in. Like, let's use Aeon Flux, right?
Uh huh.
So when I first broke in there, there was a guy that I was brought in as an environment designer,
Right.
and of the three people that were there doing environment designs, I was one of them, and I was the weakest one. So I always deferred to the seniors that had been designing, like, theme parks and feature film, animated feature film design and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
And there was this one person. I can't remember Tom's last name, but he was this elder gentleman who kind of looked like a crusty old uncle. I would always go into his office, and he was always the guy. And the first time that I'd ever seen it, he was always like designing on vellum, for whatever
Mm.
reason. I don't know why he did it, but it gave his line. I thought it was like, oh, that gives his lines this magic, but no, it wasn't. He was fucking good, and it's what he knew.
Did you ask
And
him what brush does he use?
yeah, exactly. I was that kid. I would be, what
What
pencil?
brush do you use?
Yeah, and so yeah, so it was Tom there, and then from there, because Peter, who was the creator and one of the producers of the show, Peter Chung, he's of the belief that he doesn't want a big production. He wants guys who can multitask.
Mm-hmm.
So once you were done doing background design and environment design or prompt design, he would then say, well, what else can you do, right? And I
Right.
remember him specifically coming to my desk nearing the end of my tenure as an environment designer, going like, "You want to stay on? If you know how to storyboard, that'd be great." And I go, "I know, I don't know." And he's like, "Yeah, fuck it, I'll teach you." So Peter gave me a whole. He was so behind the eight ball. I don't think he wanted to do it. He was so behind schedule that he gave me a portion of the last episode to storyboard, and
Right.
he walked me through that. So he's like, "This is why your shit's bad." You know what I mean? And he walked me through what it was like to storyboard with a very specific eye that Peter has in regards to all of the subliminal stuff that he does whenever he boards, all the subtext and context that he tries to always double up on. And then from there, I went and storyboarded for the He-Man cartoon, which was like the best. Like, talking about, like, it wasn't necessarily award-winning by any means, but the personnel
Right.
made it so much fun.
Yeah.
So when I learned how to do action storyboards is when I got onto that show. I did this guy by
Wait,
the
you
name of
worked on
Jay.
T-Man,
Uh-huh.
the cartoons?
Yep, yep,
Oh damn.
yeah.
I loved watching those, dude.
Yeah, dude,
It was so fun.
I didn't know what I was doing there either, but my mentor, his name is, he was a director, his name is Jay Oliva, and he basically walked me through how to do action storyboards, like
Right.
heavy on action, heavy on sword fighting, heavy on, like what James Cameron does, which is, like, set the camera, do the composition, it pans over and it's a brand new composition, but the camera doesn't really cut. So
Yeah.
shit like that, I had to learn that the choreography, that is very specific to action. So whenever I see guys losing their shit over, like, the choreography over the Matrix, I'm all like, oh yeah, that's what I did for a living for a long, long time, is just do all of that action fighting. And then
Mm.
finally, when I moved over to the Batman at Warner Brothers doing storyboards for that, my mentor there was this guy by the name of Sam Liu. And Sam was the one, okay, I'm going to take everything that you learned from Peter and everything that you learned from Jay and now actually make it a more holistic skill set for you where you actually can do drama, subtext, composition, fighting, and it just made the whole thing congeal. And that's when I was like, oh, wow, I
Right.
was learning portions at any given time because those shows only facilitated portions. But now that I'm on this thing, I can actually be an act one, two, or three guy depending on what they need me to be, because
Right.
act one is always like the setup, act two is always like the drama a little bit, and act three is where all the action hits, especially in an action adventure kind of show like Batman. And so from there, it just, like, I went to Justice League and worked under Bruce Timm doing all the heavy duty superhero stuff, and then
Hmm.
just one thing right after the other, and I took all of that knowledge and went into comic books, and I learned from my mentors there too.
That's nice. Yeah, you found your mentors in every work you've done, so that's
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
Yeah, that's definitely the right way of doing things.
Yeah,
Finding a
yeah.
person like who just gonna like teach you, not fucking sit with you and then babysit sit you through stuff, but
Yeah.
like really help you out in terms of like figuring out what needs to be done in order to progress, or give you hints, at least hints to like nudge you in the right direction so you
Sure.
can
What was
take
that
it. And
experience like? What was that experience like for you? I mean, you you
I didn't
you and I have
have you know
similar
what
experience, but not identical,
I
right?
did have I did have some mentors along the way, people that helped me out
Yeah.
and were like really open. They're, like right now when you go on forums and you post something, or you go on
Yeah.
ArtStation or whatever, or whether it's like ArtStation or Twitter, or Instagram or whatever that is, you post
Yeah.
something, is every majority of the comments is like, it looks cool, it's awesome, like,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Yeah.
it looks like
Nice.
shit, it's nice, or a
Yeah.
smiley face, or thumbs
Yeah.
up, like, that wasn't the case back then on forums. On
Yeah.
forums, you would still have those posts, but people, I guess, because there was not that many people in the industry, I felt there was more camaraderie to sort of help, but there was also more trolling going on too.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. There were people just like they didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. They just like to bitch about everything. Um, but I remember, majority of my knowledge I would get from posting and seeing what people reply, like how people reply, and I'll
Yeah.
get like really upset if someone comment bad on my work. But then I had thanks to like a couple of guys that I've met online, and one of them was Rafa Votunik from
Hmm.
from Platage Image. He's one of the illustrators. Oh, he might be actually art director now. I think he's the art director at Platage Image right now. He used to him and there was one more guy. I can't remember his name. Um, Paweł Świerczyński, I think. Two Polish guys. Like, we're really big on forums. I think both of them were moderators on that big Polish CG forum.
Yeah.
But they were working professionally already when I was learning, and they would point out like straight away, like, this looks like shit. You're approaching it the wrong way. Like, learn anatomy. Like, I remember Rafa would definitely tell me learn anatomy. Like every fucking post I made, learn anatomy,
Yeah.
motherfucker.
Yeah.
And I was just like, first I would ignore it, and then like, maybe you're right, you know. And
Yeah.
then like stop copying Mullins,
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah.
that. It's just
Yeah.
like they giving you like those hints where like you shouldn't do this. Like this is not the right way. Like if you're just there to post and make people like your work just for liking,
Yeah.
okay, do that. But that's not gonna
Yeah.
get you anywhere. Like you're not
Yeah.
gonna learn anything, and you're not gonna get work out of that either.
Yeah.
And that's what happens today too. Like people like to, let's say Vitali posts his new images, and then you see fucking Vitali copies everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
And that's normal. People like, I mean, a lot of artists get inspired and they want to do something similar.
Sure.
A lot of us have no ideas. We just sort of like create ideas from what we see, including
Sure.
myself.
Yeah. Yep.
In a way, I'm trying to be more creative these days, but it's really difficult.
Yeah. Absolutely.
um, but the fact is, like, yeah, it's like having someone who will tell you right away, like this is a wrong way of doing things, really helps. And I had a couple of souls like that would just tell me like, no,
Yeah.
dude, this is wrong. Like you should not do it this way. You should do it that way instead.
Right.
I
Right.
think
Right.
biggest change for me was again, like that's why I said Bruce Straley was one of those guys that I've learned a lot from, because he was exactly that way, and he was not like you shouldn't do this or shouldn't do that. He was challenge, like I would do something, and then he would just like look at the work and say it looks cool, but why it's this way or that way,
Right. Right.
especially like, and we went like really in like really deep waters with fucking plants and dirt and abandoned stuff. And
Yeah.
normally when you do that, you usually find like overgrown shit. You just do whatever you feel it should be there, and that's it. That's how
Yeah.
most people paint overgrown stuff, right? And
Right.
when you used to I used to look at most of the games that were created, that's how it would look like. A lot
Yeah.
of everything would just look destroyed evenly, rust everywhere, and fucking
Right.
overgrown shit everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And when I was working with Bruce, he was like, okay, why there are plants in this particular place and not in this place,
Right.
maybe because like the window got broken, and because the window got broken, over time with the wind and the weather, like rain and whatnot, the soil would come in and start gathering around that area where the window was broken, and then the
Sure.
rain would make that soil whatever, and then just
Sure.
like pollen would come in and
That's
shit
fucking
would start
awesome.
growing, and then
That's awesome.
you would have to look at how much sun would that area get. And obviously shit doesn't grow or rarely ever grows. You're not going to have trees and plants where there's no sun, or
Right.
at least a little bit of sun, because they grow on that. But then you're gonna have some other stuff growing, like moss and shit like that. So
Yeah.
so we would just look at it almost very scientifically
Yeah. Sure.
in
Sure.
terms of how we build the world. And
Yep.
he was a person that would challenge you on every fucking single step when it
Really.
comes to that. Yeah,
Yeah.
we would
Yeah.
have images. Some of the images that I posted from The Last of Us that are like super detailed and fucking chiseled to every fucking detail there.
Yeah.
It would take us 3 weeks to go over some of those images, because you would just constantly go back and forth, and not 3 weeks to create or like paint the image,
Yeah.
but to go back and forth and do changes, constant
Yeah.
changes, and like
Yeah.
corrections.
Because he was asking you what your decision making was, right?
Exactly, on every fucking detail.
Fuck, that's crazy.
Yeah, so it was very very interesting to work with. And then like that plus how it's gonna work with the gameplay, how it's gonna work with like everything including storytelling, like how can we dress the environment
Yeah.
so that it supports storytelling, but it
Right.
still feels believable to how the environment would be created in natural setting.
Right. Right.
So it was a lot of like going back and forth, and eventually, over time you learn that shit, and we found the rhythm, and images would take much much shorter.
Sure. Sure.
Would create like almost a gallery of stuff that had a lot of sense, and then
Yeah.
you just copy and rinse and repeat.
Sure.
But it was really challenging because like You know, when you do something and you feel like I got this, you know, and you do it, and then someone challenges you and you sort of
Mm-hmm.
like, well, what now? Like,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
I thought I got this, but I got just thrown off the bus, and like, what the fuck am I
Right.
supposed to
Right.
do? I
Right.
had the same thing working with John Gata
Okay.
on Jupiter Ascending.
Okay.
Say what you want about that movie.
Yeah.
I personally didn't like it either. Um, but working with John was amazing because
Yeah.
like I would do what I felt that like I got this. This is my realm. This is sort of so easy. And I would
Yeah.
do something that I felt that he wants, and he was like, "That's exactly opposite of what I wanted." And he would just like challenge me in terms of like trying to find like different materials and shape languages and really on that sort of the design sense of
Yeah.
things. And
Yeah.
I've learned a lot in terms of like manipulating different materials and looks in order to achieve something that is more original,
Sure.
rather than something that just sort of like is a iteration of something that already exists, which a
Sure.
lot of us kind of like to do, right? We take
Oh, dude.
photobashing and
Totally.
overpainting, all of that stuff that happens. It's so much easier to do.
Can I tell
Um,
you, I don't know a
yeah,
thing
go ahead,
about
man.
photo bashing.
Yeah, go ahead. Ask.
As, yeah, I don't know anything about photo bashing. 0%. I don't know because I'm not
Good.
comfortable enough. Like I'm not. It's not a thing I'm patting myself on the back for. It's because I'm afraid that without having the foundational skills of understanding why I'm doing it, then I would just do it and just it would just like anybody who has a good eyeball for it would just be like, look at this piece of shit, like
Right.
look at this guy trying really, really hard.
Well, now you took my class at Learn
Yeah.
Squared, so you'll learn a little bit about that for
I
sure.
haven't gotten to that chapter yet. I haven't
Oh
gotten to
yeah,
that.
you'll get there. I mean, half of the class is not even that. It's a lot of foundation. But
Yeah.
that's a big misconception about photo bashing. Like,
Yeah.
it's very easy to take some kind of photo and manipulate it, and then do something. Like when you see those images, there's like almost not these days, but like a couple of years ago, almost everyone would post those futuristic, soldier designs,
Sure.
and some of the guys were really good at it. And then
Yeah.
I guess that's where the Mr. Concept Art came from as well, because it
Right.
was just like this photo bashing of random tech stuff in order to
Right.
create like a soldier or something. Because that's the easiest shit to do. You just take like a photo of a SWAT team or something, and you just slightly edit it. It looks
Right.
like a realistic lighting.
Shit. Yeah.
Um, but it's like the moment you do that, and the moment director asks you, "Hey, I want to see it from the back and different lighting," and you're fucked, because like, oh, I don't have a photo for
Right,
that.
right, right. I don't have the original. Yeah.
So there's a big misconception in terms of like, oh, photo bashing is easy. It
Yeah.
is if you just take a photo and slightly manipulate it. Yeah, it's gonna make it look realistic for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
It's a different story when you use photography as textures or elements to your overall painting that already has sort of like your own design and foundation, right?
Okay.
That's
Okay.
where it becomes really difficult because now all of a sudden you have to understand perspective, you have to understand composition, you have to understand color and lighting. And
Sure.
if you don't understand any of that, you're gonna do a mistake that a lot of artists that don't have a foundation do, where they
Yep.
take different photos and they put them together because it looks cool. They sort of like make it feel like it's there, but you can see like errors fucking everywhere,
Sure.
and it looks
Sure.
average as fuck, right?
Yeah.
It has like no lighting definition. Some photos are put together. You have like two different textures put together. They all have different lighting,
Yeah.
and you clearly see that's going on. And the biggest problem with that is because you're using photographic material, you're sort of tricking a brain of the viewer to feel like this is supposed to be a realistic thing.
Sure.
And because we see realistic things 24/7, apart from sleeping, obviously, but the moment you open your eyes, you see the world as it is.
Sure.
So your perception of realism is fucking rock solid, and you can clearly tell if something is off. Like you don't have to be an artist to tell
Yeah.
like something's off, right?
Yep. Totally.
And I think that's where it just falls apart for people,
Yeah.
where you're gonna put something together, but without any understanding of the lighting
Right.
or composition, or even just like simple things like, let's say you take a photo of I don't know, some ruins, right?
Right.
And you want to match it to your composition, but you stretch it in the wrong way and you don't adjust like the
Right.
lines of that architectural piece to match your perspective lines. And a
Totally.
lot of artists do that. Like if things look stretched,
Yeah.
or flattened like in the weird way.
Yeah.
Like if you just change the camera angle of the building by, let's say, 45 degree angle,
Yeah.
your windows and columns gonna look completely different now,
Sure.
and you have to
Absolutely.
adjust your photo in order to reflect that. And also then when it comes to different lighting, you have to do the same thing.
Good
And
Lord.
it's just like now it just becomes work, right? You have to actually start editing that stuff, and you have to understand lighting and composition and everything, and it just fucking falls apart.
Right. 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 Right.
So there is a big misconception like, oh, it's easy to photobush. Yeah, it's like if you find perfect photos,
You're
which
right.
rarely ever happens.
Right.
But if you don't, then well, you're shit out of luck, and it's gonna
Yeah.
look like shit. And then when director asks you to do changes, then like it just starts falling apart. Like you
Right.
can tell when you have a perfect photos and you just do a little editing and it looks like photorealistic, awesome concept art.
Yeah.
But the moment like you get feedback and you have to start editing stuff and actually painting, it turns to shit.
Yeah. Which do you prefer, dude? Which I mean, if you know, obviously there's a little there's a necessity for it just because of the what do you call it, speed, right? It's predicated upon speed from
Yeah,
time
yeah,
to
yeah,
time.
yeah, of course. I mean,
Okay.
the only reason you do photo bushing is to do it fast.
Right.
That's really the only reason. And if you do it for your personal work, you do it because you're not maybe focusing on lighting or texture. You may be focusing on having interesting composition,
Right.
or something
Okay.
else, right? Or
Okay.
design.
Okay.
Whatever your goal is, you make shortcuts to learn that specific goal, and then take everything out of the way. So you only focus on one thing that is really important in one piece.
Right.
That's how I at least approach it. I don't. I mean, for those who've been following my work since I started, I've done fair share of painting. I think I haven't started to like actually photo bush until like use photos excessively, not in a way of like using them as references or color picking, all of that stuff. That's a different story. But
Yeah.
like using them excessively in order to create compositions, not
Hmm.
until 2009, maybe 2011. No, actually
Yeah.
2011, where
Yeah.
I actually started using photos to make stuff look realistic.
Right.
And 2004 up until then, I would paint, and then obviously use textures to
Yep.
enhance stuff, but I would
Yep.
still paint
Yeah.
most of the time.
Yeah.
Like I remember, um, for the first 2 years or first 3 years of working at Crytek, I would almost rarely ever use photos.
Yeah.
Um, I would still use them for some of the things, and I would get a lot of shit from some of the concept artists there. They were just making
Why?
fun. They would call me copy paste. um, yeah, because like there was one guy that used to do that, and he was like really fucking good painter, like
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like it wasn't anything like malicious. It was just like just making fun, like
Yeah.
just poking you. It was a funny thing, but uh, you know, I would still sort of like try to learn my foundations in a way. I did like a lot of sketching. Most of my work that have been appreciated for the most of the time was actual those speed paintings that I've done way back when.
Yeah.
Um, which I kind of feel like I need to go back to it a little
How
bit.
come?
I just feel like I've been missing that a little bit. That sort of way of sketching and sort of keeping things loose. I have a
Yeah.
really hard time these days to like keep things loose,
Yeah.
and like leave details out of certain areas, and keep them really as a sketch.
Yeah.
Almost
Yeah.
always like obsess about, oh, everything has to be fucking detailed.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm OCD in that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like you don't use photography at all. And I know your work. I remember seeing some of the stuff you've done for um, Riot Games when I was there
Mhm.
a couple of times. Like, holy shit, this guy fucking does some crazy freaking designs, and that's always I've
Yeah,
been jealous about people like you, man. Where you know you have like this really interesting sense of finding shapes and forms that I always struggle with, you know.
yeah, yeah,
But I mean, it makes a lot of sense. You pretty much don't rely on reference per
yeah.
se. I mean, you obviously use references to
Yep,
find ideas and how forms and shapes are supposed to look like, but
yep.
you're not necessarily incorporating them as part of the image.
Although I gotta be honest with you, I think I should do it more, right? Because, you know, I don't know if I've done enough to make my mental Rolodex so robust I can just create from a practical place, right? It's almost
Mm.
like I think that's the reason why I end up redrawing so much because as I'm searching for something, because as I continue to search, I go like, oh, that sucks, that sucks, that sucks. Oh, that's getting better, that's getting better. And then finally I go, I really don't know how to draw. Like right now, as I'm drawing this, I'm like, I really know how to draw like rhinoceros anatomy.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, I better go look at the rhinoceros. And I mean, so I was laughing at myself right now as I was doing it. I was like, you know what? I could have saved so much time if I had just, gone and look. And now I have it in my head, and now I can pretty much just manipulate it the
Yeah.
way I need it to go, right? So, in as much as I'm like, yeah, I don't typically do like, heavy duty front end research, I think there's space for it. I think I need to be more diligent about that moving forward.
Now I can tell you that there are some images that I spend 2 hours on fucking reference research.
Yeah,
I'll just
it's
sit for
so
2 hours and look for the right amount of references
yeah,
and have like a set of things that I know that I'm gonna use for the
yeah,
work that I want to use.
yeah,
I'm very deliberate in choosing what I need to use.
yeah,
And obviously things like using 3D makes things easier, and
sure.
having a fair share of painting. You know what it comes down to as well. I think
Mm,
up until maybe 2009, 2008, it
yeah.
was very frowned upon to use photos in your images.
Why?
2009, I would say, is
Why?
when it just started like going easy and people just like, oh fuck it, like I'm just gonna do it anyways.
Yeah,
I remember like posting on forums. If someone would figure out you used reference, like a photo reference in your image,
yeah.
they'll be like, "Oh, you're a cheater. You're a bitch. Like, fuck you."
What the fuck? Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Why?
crazy. It was like I don't know what that was, but that's how it was, and people were mostly I'm not everyone, but mostly afraid of doing that. And a lot of people would, you know what they would do? They
Yeah.
would just like do it anyways, but then claim that they painted everything.
Oh, I see. I see.
And
Yeah,
and a lot of people got exposed that way, where it's just like,
yeah.
oh, you bitch, like I found the reference that you used, and you just like slightly
So good.
edited that shit.
Yeah, it's so
A
good.
lot of like fake drama. But then you know what? I think I know what changed it.
Yeah,
You know, Craig Mullins does use photos in his work too, especially
sure,
production work. And
sure.
someone found like I think it was like a Fallout concept art that he did, like a really large illustration, and they
Mm-hmm.
like someone just broken it down like oh like this motherfucker he doesn't know how to paint he's using photos everywhere, and like they found like exact references that he used for that one
Sure,
image,
sure.
and like you fucking dummy, like this guy paints with oils, and he's been
Yeah.
art like doing art for like 30 years before computers were fucking invented, you idiot.
Yeah, he helps inform on Adobe's fucking like, protocols as far as like what works and
Yeah,
what
I
does
think it was
not.
just the lack of information and the fact that everyone, like, not everyone was open about sharing the way things were done. And I think it's
Sure,
just like way easier now.
sure.
But yeah, it was so funny. It was really frowned upon, like using photo references in your work, and at least like publicly. I guess for if you would work in a company, it was a little different. You know, you just do what needs to be done for the
Sure.
project. But yeah, it changed. It changed like the. I think it started changing around 2008 and nine, and
Dude.
then now today it's like nobody gives a shit.
Yeah, because it's like end of the day, nobody's I think it would just became like one of those things where you go, nobody cares, right? Nobody cares. It's
Yeah,
just like the coolest looking fucking image.
yeah,
Let's just try that.
Yeah, let's create ideas that
Yeah.
are really cool to look at instead of just like how they are made. And then obviously you have guys like you know who Jama Jurbaev is, right?
So let me be absolutely clear about this. Of the names that you said right now, the people that you worked for, the guys who helped sort of like
Mm-hmm.
establish foundation and the infrastructure and the skeleton of an industry, I'm telling you, I'm not lying when I say I don't know anything about anything. So when you're saying like, oh,
All right.
there's this guy, and we all
I'll
started,
send you his work. I'll send you
yeah,
his work. You're
yeah.
gonna be blown away. That
See,
guy
I have
is
no idea.
fucking.
I have
He's
no idea about
crazy.
anyone.
Yeah, Jama is like right now he's making stuff look like traditional art, but it's all
Yeah.
VR, so you can actually fucking walk around this stuff. It
Yeah.
looks like a like you look at it on an image, it looks like a sketch,
Yeah.
and then he just moves the camera and it's all 3D. Like what the
Oh,
fuck? No, that guy is crazy. Everyone
that's
knows. Everyone who probably everyone who listens to this knows who Jama is.
Yeah, so everyone can
Uh,
get a good laugh
I'll
out of
educate you. I'll
overall,
educate. I'll send you some
my
links. You'll be
overall
like, "What the
ignorance.
fuck is this guy doing?" It's so
Yeah.
crazy.
Like, why is he on this show?
I'm actually gonna have him on my Twitch stream on Thursday
Oh, that's
at
awesome.
at 1 p.m. Yeah, he's gonna
Yeah,
be
cool.
doing some VR probably or whatever. That guy is a fucking crazy machine. I've met him for the first time when I was working on the X-Men with
Okay.
NPC, and he was there. Um, yeah, yeah. Someone's saying on the chat, rapes Eric's mind, Mache. I will. I fucking I'll rape you with Jama's images.
Oh, you have a chat going right now?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a live chat. There's people. There's actually some questions that were
Oh, holy
posted
shit.
there.
I thought it was just you and me chit-chatting, but cool, that's awesome.
No, it's all live, man. It's all live.
Oh,
There's not that many people listening. It's pretty late. So all the people that are in California are probably listening, and there's some people from Europe. It's like 5 a.m. there.
sure, sure. We
Yeah, I
picked an
usually have
appropriate
like
time.
two or three times more people if it's like during the day. But yeah, who cares?
Yeah,
Who cares? We just do it when it works.
yeah.
Um, yeah, man. It's Jama is the Jama. Jama is Jama.
Yeah.
What else can be
That's,
said? Nothing
that's
else. Not else. Nothing else has to be said there. Um, Someone asked you actually a question. I'll jump into that and we can just continue conversation from those questions. I think
yeah,
we
yeah.
covered a lot of topics, man.
I think so too.
Someone was asking why Riot Games need so many artists while they only have one game available.
That's a fucking perfect question. Let's see.
That's a really important question to be answered, dude.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Why does Riot? I don't know. That all there's a lot of stipulation going on in that question. As if like, what is so many artists? You know,
I
like I
mean,
don't know.
I don't
What's the
I don't
number?
think I'm gonna get in trouble by saying that the reason why Riot is hiring so many artists is because they are doing work.
Yeah,
Like a
yeah,
company would not hire people if they would not be doing any work. So
right.
you could
At
you
its
could you
core, I
could
think that's pretty good space to answer that, right?
yeah,
Like,
draw your own conclusions there.
yeah.
Yeah, my voice is weird because I'm still sick. No HR at Naughty Dog. No, there they do have HR. We're just like breaking all the rules, I guess.
Yeah, man.
Have you
We're-
worked with John Timms?
Yeah, I was just in New York with him this weekend.
Oh, nice. What
Yeah.
were you doing at New York?
There was a convention there, a comic book convention, New York Comic Con this
All
past
right.
week.
It's
Yep.
it's like the second biggest Comic Con, right?
Yeah,
After San Diego one,
after San
but it's
Diego.
more like comic book related, right?
No, it's all the same now. It's
Oh, it's
all
all
like
the same.
pop culture stuff now. Yeah, I
I
mean
wanted.
it's so different now, or it's so much the same now that the comic book, like the artist alley, which was I set, was in the freaking basement. 10 degrees, 15 degrees hotter than anywhere else. So it's all the same. It's all
So
pretty
it's
much the
like
same.
all flipped from artists being there showing comic books to fucking films and adaptations and shit like that, basically.
Oh yeah, they're debuting everything from
Oh
like
my god.
like all the nerd stuff, all the geek culture that's now permeated through the public consciousness. Stuff that in 1993 we would like, what are you talking about? There's an Avengers movie, Like
Right.
I just saw on the big billboard walking back to the hotel. It was like, oh, they debuted the Pacific Rim movie, and I was
Yeah.
like. I was like, oh, that's interesting. It just makes me flash back to 95 when I was like, the first thing that we ever saw, I can't even remember. It was like, oh, Blade is a movie? Holy shit, you know?
Blade
Like, that's
was
the
a fucking awesome movie, by the
yeah.
way. I
It was the
enjoyed
first
it.
one we saw that we're like, oh, it's a comic book and it's actually a feature film movie. That's kind of cool, you
And
know?
it's really cool with
Yeah.
Wesley Snipes, fucking with his
Yeah, these days,
katanas.
it's like
That was a
everybody
fucking
making
awesome
comic
movie. I enjoyed the shit out of it.
Yep.
Someone asked you about your transition from traditional comic books to digital. Like
Yeah.
how was it for you?
To digital comics? I've
No, just
never done that.
generally, like from just drawing traditionally to drawing digitally.
Oh, yeah, that's a recent thing. That's
When did you switch? Like for because I know like now you're working digitally, obviously, and
yeah,
but you do a lot of sketches and ink illustrations still. I
yeah,
can see them on your Instagram constantly.
yeah.
But like, how recent was that for you?
5 months ago, 6 months ago.
Damn,
Yeah.
that is crazy.
Yeah, it because it's easier to communicate with my team doing it digital, right?
Right.
It's a lot easier for me to take holding a principal artist role whenever I have sort of like, we're always in the business of like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if, which is a great sort of like that's always a great conversation starter,
Right. Right.
because it's an additive too. So anytime that
How
I've
long
been
you've been at Riot Games, by the way?
for 4 years, going on 4 years now.
Damn. Okay. So you've
Yeah.
been doing traditional work with them for most of your time.
For the most part, yeah. Like most of my
That's
pieces are
interesting.
like these marker renderings that are like they this big, and then scanning them and then doing a lot of digital touch up for the most part, but never really like straight to digital from the get
Right.
go.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
Yeah, but your traditional work is fucking awesome.
Thanks,
So that's
man.
why.
Thanks. So yeah, only about okay, let's say conservatively about 10 months to a year. Let's say that's when I really started getting into my head. I'd better start getting good at this digital thing, let's make it painful for a long, long time so that we can get that way, and then just start learning how to do more of the digital pipeline so that I can help inform faster. So everything is just being emailed to me or like messaged over to me really quick, and I do the paint over as best as I can. And like you were talking about, however long ago in this conversation, the more I did it, the more I realized I'm learning so much from them. From the
Right.
associate to junior level guys who are turning stuff into me. Just the nature of me having to explain myself, to voice it out loud, and to communicate why the additive that
Yeah.
I'm putting on there. It just allowed me to learn it faster. And there's nothing better than to actually do it, just doing it, rather
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
maybe it'll be better if I take these classes, if I take those classes, blah blah blah. It's like just fucking do it because it helps you identify faster where the holes are in your skill set. So then you can be a little bit more focused about what you want to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I remember there was this guy at Crytek, Timur Mutsayev. He would do like a mix. He would start his sketches in pencils and then
Hmm.
scan them and sort of like colorize and finish them in Photoshop. So they always
Yeah.
had that very traditional feel to them. He
Yep.
was really good at character work.
Yep. That
Um,
was that's my speed. That was my speed for a long, long time, is to do it like that. To say like,
Interesting.
yep.
How did
Yeah.
you how did you feel with fucking switching to tablet? I guess tablets these days are pretty good. When I was learning, it was fucking you move your pen and cursor would go all over the place.
Yeah, yeah. No, things now are so much more seamless, right? Everything is
Yeah.
just easier now. The what do you call it? The divide of, where the pen is versus where the glass is. I've trained my eye to not pay attention to where the pen is landing, but where the cursor is.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Exactly.
that eliminates that divide very quickly. And just knowing like for instance, in the beginning, the intimidating part, we were joking earlier, like what brushes do you use? Like
Exactly.
for me now, I find
It's a
like I don't.
valid question for starting artists though. Like,
Yeah, yeah, because you think there's something magical behind that. Nowadays, like
it can be.
it can be. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It may make the, what do you call it? It may make the overall speed pick up by a couple notches, if not considerable notches. But for me, I'm just like, I didn't have the like I wanted to pare down the challenges. So I'm like, what's in Photoshop right now? You know? Like what's built into Photoshop? And I just grabbed one that I thought was like, yeah, okay, so I'll use that brush. And then
Yeah.
I've never really found an overly compelling reason at this stage in my learning to go beyond it, you know? So when I was looking at your lessons, you were like, oh, the brushes, there's like a limited set of brushes because we want to make sure you don't get overwhelmed by the amount of tools at your in your toolkit. You just want to make sure these five are probably going to be your go-to for the X amount of chapters moving forward. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense to me. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's really, really smart because it's not about that thing first. It's about this thing first, and then eventually you start incorporating more and more of those tools into to what you do.
You know that making that class actually made me clean up my brushes for the
Oh
first
yeah,
time ever.
right on.
Yeah, man. I used to have like fucking gazillions of brushes from everyone, and then I just
How
like
did you like? How do you like? Do you keep a mental Rolodex of like, oh, I know the brush that does that. I know how to, you know?
I just found that I remember which brushes that I used the most, and then where they were in the list, and I would use them. And then
Shit.
I
Yeah,
quickly realized, like, wait a minute, I'm spending time sometimes finding them, but I'm
yeah,
really just using five or six. So
exactly.
I scaled down to I maybe have like 20 brushes left in
Okay,
my kit.
okay.
And like I have,
Shit. Okay.
but like for regular work, I would have maybe three or four that I use the most of the time, and the round brush would be one of those, by the way.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
the more I work, the more I use the round brush.
yeah,
And then I
dude.
would have like specialty brushes that are only used for specific things, and
Right.
I find them really useful, especially if I want to find like a texture for
Yeah,
something, you know,
yeah,
then they're
yep,
pretty useful.
yep.
Um, but yeah, definitely that helped sort of like trim down because there's just way too many of them. And I periodically like to look at what other artists are using, what kind of brushes they're using, because
Yeah,
you might find that one brush that just like makes it so much easier and more
yeah,
juicy in a way. You know, like
yeah,
your
yeah.
work's gonna have that juicy feel to it.
Right.
There was one software that does it really well. That I almost use only custom brushes from people that I've from like they have their store for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just free, by the way, which
Mm-hmm.
is the Manga Studio, Clip Studio Paint.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, that software is awesome. Like the simulation of pencils and inks is amazing. Like
Yeah.
it's way better than anywhere else that I've tried.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
really enjoy that one.
I've actually tried inking using the tablet to ink, and at first I thought like because I'm such a traditionalist when it comes to pen and
Uh
ink
huh.
stuff, right? I was like, I wonder if I'm gonna find a pretty decent representation of that digitally. And just in the past month and a half, I found it. I was just like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, this is what my pages look like. And if I were to print this out, it'd look exactly like my comic book pages. You know,
Yeah.
it's pretty awesome.
Let's see. Someone, Paulina asked, do you know any resources, websites, school books where you can find free art lessons or affordable ones? Everyone posting Learn Squared.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking. They're at the controlpaint.com, Gumroads, Learn Squared, obviously. Um, there are some free resources that are good, but it's just like the problem with the free resources is that you have to spend time finding them and
Yes.
sort of like watching what's out there and knowing that that's the right resource because someone might be an expert. I consider it this way: you're an expert if you know more than a person that's trying to learn from you, right? So that's
Yeah.
you can consider yourself expert towards that person, but there's certain things, and I agree with you when you said like there's a lot of free resources, but not necessarily all of them is going to be good because there are certain rules when it comes to not rules but certain foundations that you need to learn,
Yep.
and it's gonna be much easier and less bumpy road if you find a person that has those foundation nailed
Yep.
to the teeth, like
Yep.
someone like Scott Robertson or
Yep.
Ron Lemon or any of those guys, right? That teach foundations in a very systematic but very easy to understand way, and also they're fucking doing it correctly.
Yeah.
because they're an amazing artist and they have it on the lock. So that's gonna be more productive way of learning than finding hundreds of videos of people that just gonna sort of brush through or like skim through the ideas without explaining why they're doing that. Because a lot of things we do is by just like the way we feel it's supposed to be, right? Will you agree?
Oh yeah, yeah, and the so here's a thing that I want to add to that as well. Like whenever you talk to professionals who have been doing it for a while, just as easily as you were rattling off the all the stuff out there that as far as like online resources that are good, there's a reason why people keep referring back to those people, right?
Yeah.
Because not only are they good, but they work, you know? So you can spend time, like you said, you can spend time looking for the thing. And I don't know what each individual's financial, what do you call it, limitations are. So I
Mm-hmm.
can't speak to that. But if what you want to do is to maximize your learning, it's well worth the sort of investment to do it because you know that's where other people are getting it to, right? That's where the quality stuff is going for, you know?
Yeah.
People speak about a very highly coveted, well machined thing because it comes from a place of quality, not just because it's what everybody else wants, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think a question you should ask yourself is how much how much is it worth for you to earn a living in this industry, like to do what you love to do and get paid for it? Because in at least in the US, I don't know, I mean in Europe it's different because universities are free, but you know, free universities don't guarantee you work. There's
Yeah.
still ethic that you need to learn. You have to have right mentors that
Hmm.
will push you in the right direction. Because you can have every degree you want, but if you're not obsessed about something, you're never gonna succeed in it. You're never gonna be like fucking awesome at it, right?
Yeah.
And same goes to art. Like if you want to be an amazing artist, you have to have a mentor or someone who's going to teach you the right way of doing it and also spark that, that obsession about it too.
Yeah.
um, and unfortunately, majority of the resources that are available are either free or are out there are crap, are absolute fucking garbage.
Yeah.
And it's not because people that are some of those people who are doing that, they are doing it only for the money. Some people are just trying because they want to help, but they're
Hmm.
not necessarily best at it.
Yeah.
And there's obviously like, hey, you can go to the art center. You can go to like those ateliers, and you can go to I don't know, Norman School, but you have to be prepared to pay tens of thousands of dollars in
Yeah.
order to get an education.
Yeah.
And the question is, can you like how bad you want to do it, and how bad you need to spend that money in order to get that education, and then have a student debt that's gonna be almost like a mortgage for you
Yeah.
for next 10, 15, or how many years that's going to be.
Yeah.
And for some, if you have the right mindset, if you're the right person to do it, it's gonna work out for you. Like Noman is a good example where I think they have like the amount of people that they sit in, the amount of people that they take in, and how where they end up being afterwards. From what I heard, is like really fucking high percentage.
Really? Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, like really, really high percentage. Um, but people that go to that school, at least that's what I assume. They know that they want to do that specifically, and they invest in their future, right?
Right.
So you have to look at it this way. Um, Rarely ever things are free and they are awesome. Like rarely ever,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's just like you just have to look at it as an investment, and is it worth to invest in a school A or B, or find alternative sources? Learn Squared is one source, and then you have Brainstorm. You have all of those schools that are out there as well, that are taught. The lessons that are taught out there are taught by people that work in the industry. They've
Yeah.
been in the industry. They worked on fucking Avatar and Captain America and The Last of Us and Call of Duty, like all of the things you enjoy in entertainment. They've done that, and they teach you how to do it. How they do it. So you know, money is always going to be an issue, but you have to sort of like figure out what is where you're gonna invest in your,
Right.
and if it's really worth it, you know. That's basically what I did my talk about as well at
Yeah,
THU.
man.
Yeah, it's just like about, what to do and what to do to become an artist. Go watch it.
Right, right.
um, no, you have to be obsessed. You have to really be obsessed about becoming one, and because it's a hard work,
Yeah,
and then you just pick where you want to invest.
yeah.
So that's where it's at. Why are you not on art station, Eric?
That's a good question. I think it's because in my mind I've reserved ArtStation for the kinds of things that it's typically found there, right?
Right.
And I don't know if or at least I had it built in my head that I am not my body of work is not qualified to be in there.
You're
So
you're you're full of shit, my
I'm not
friend.
like
You're full of
I,
shit.
I'm
Not
not
full
like
of. See, that's
I
that's the
I
wrong choice of words.
yeah.
You're fooling yourself. You're
Okay.
you're.
I didn't know. I was like, because when you go into a space, you're kind of like, or when you go into any sort of that community, right?
Right.
And like the community is known for primarily this thing and more of it, more often than not, 60, 70%, it trends towards that way. And so
Yeah, in a way. I
when I
mean,
when I go to ArtStation, what I see is a lot of guys who are dealing with concept art in regards to 3D, in regards to that kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, I don't do that stuff. That's not really I don't know if my stuff would be anywhere near relevant enough. I have since changed my mind. I'm like, in my current position in life, I'm just like, I don't give a shit. Like, if it allows people more access to my work, right?
hmm
Then why not? Right? If it allows people to have more awareness to my work, then why not? I don't care where it is.
yeah, I think that's the best way to look at it, is like allowing yourself for really fraction of your time, because just posting work is not really that difficult.
Sure.
I do understand what you're saying. Like the more places you post, the well, that becomes a little bit of can become a little bit of an issue, because then you, like, anytime you want to post something new, and it becomes like a fucking time management all of a sudden.
Yeah.
um but the way I look at it, like, I have a couple of places that I'll post, and
Yeah.
I haven't been posting regularly recently, but I have some film work that's coming up that I'll be posting soon.
Nice.
um but yeah, like, the way I look at it is exactly as you said. Like, I don't like, if it can bring more awareness to my work, that's perfect.
Yep.
Most of my work I found, I got from just people finding me online.
Hmm.
Especially, that's how I got into film. Like, my first
Oh, is
film
that right?
work, yeah, my first film work was from people finding my work online.
Yeah.
And like, production designers would have their assistants that they would use for, like, not only assistants, but I also have like researchers, people that professionally look for references and stuff like that. So including concepts and artists and all of that stuff. So that's how I got my first film work. That's how I got my first work at all,
Yeah. Yeah.
from being online. So I know there's a power in it.
Yep.
But I never look at it as like, is my work worth it or not? Like, I don't fucking care. Let's just post it. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, then you don't.
Yeah.
That's where it ends. Like, that's as simple as that. You
Yeah.
have a fucking significant following on your Instagram, though. Your Instagram is really big for you, huh?
Is it?
Oh yeah, it's like over 130 or 150,000 followers, dude. It's a lot.
Somebody else pays attention to it. You obviously, yeah.
No, I
I'm,
mean, I am subscribed, so, like, when I subscribe to an artist, like, oh shit, he has so many followers. That's awesome.
yeah. Yeah, it's flattering to understand, or at least to be made aware of I've tried to keep myself as humble and as far away from like because I look at it, let's say that you just said that number. The last time somebody said something to me, we just breached like 100 and something, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, like, okay, but is that making my art any better? It's like,
Yeah.
is it driving me to become to be as sharp as possible? Is it
Right.
helping me identify where all my weaknesses? And like, I don't disregard. As a matter of fact, I'm very grateful for you, for everybody who's following me on there. I'm very grateful for the sort of attention that it gets. But I genuinely hope that I don't get lost in that number. I actively try to not pay attention to that number so that, it doesn't somehow, plant the wrong seed in my head, because
Right, right.
I,
You
I
you don't
still
want to
want
just like post for the sake of posting to get the
exactly.
numbers up. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's definitely
Get,
true.
get better at your craft, man. That's what I always think to myself. Like, forget about that shit. That's built in. That's what Instagram is for. That's the algorithm. It's whatever.
Yeah.
But it's gonna make me a better artist. So,
Or have a big booty and
ah,
post selfies. That
yeah.
works too.
Yeah, I'll do that too, man. If I did that shit. See, like what Instagram is great for, especially the what rises to the top, is that people are have been found to be good at or good for like typically one thing, right? And
Yeah.
the people who are good for, right? Which is like good for looking at, let's say, right?
Mhm.
Know how to maximize that,
Oh yeah,
and you
definitely.
can't blame them, because
No,
if you're
yeah. I
only
mean,
good
it's a
for,
tool, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
it's definitely a tool.
yeah.
You get that nice roll of a dice plus some plastic surgery, and boom.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you have millions of followers.
Yeah, and you don't know how long that's gonna last. You better freaking use it as much as
Oh
you can.
yeah, monetize as much as you can. Use that fucking shit. If you, I mean, if you really, if it's really that's something you're after and it just makes you happy, then fucking do it. Why not?
Yeah.
Monetize the shit out of it because
Yep.
that's not gonna last forever.
Yeah, that is not evergreen. You better that shit.
Yeah, man. 100%, 100%. Last, I gonna read one last question. This is gonna be a super short answer. Do you guys do anyone cares in this industry about degree? And the answer is no.
No.
Nope. Nobody gives a fuck. I have never been asked like, "Hey, did you finish school?" Nope. Nobody cares. The only reason you would might be concerned about degree is if you like really want to move to United States, and if you're from outside of United States, it's gonna make your visa process easier.
Right.
It's gonna make less obstacles to get here. If you
That's the
don't
only
have a
time
degree, yeah, it's
I
the only reason you would be caring about it. If you can replace it with with your work experience, like working for X amount of years, that's gonna work out. But yeah, degree makes it much easier to get a visa. It's not gonna make you much easier to actually get the green card, but it definitely makes it easier to get a visa um, to be in the U.S. But that's about it. That's the only
Yeah.
thing that really helps. Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
All right, man. Let's wrap it up here. It's a little over, a little past 11.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wrap it up.
Let's do it. Get some
My
sleep,
throat.
dude. You get some
Yeah.
rest.
My sleep is good. It's just like I've been fucking ill
Yeah.
as hell. Like you've been too. I mean, since we came back from
Yep.
THU,
Yep.
I guess flying doesn't make it easier either.
Nope.
But yeah, there was definitely a flu or something going on in California or something.
Right, right.
Fucked me up. My voice is so different than normally.
Yeah. Well, are you anywhere near those fires that's happening? Because that could be affecting it too, right? You just with
Where
your
is the
inhaler.
fires? Like they're in where in the valley, right? Right now.
Yeah, there's one up north right now. I know that for a fact. There's one near my neck of the woods, closer to Irvine, I think.
Oh,
And
I
then
didn't know that.
there's definitely one closer to the valley. So that stuff is in the air, and you just never know.
Well, I mean, LA fucking air is not the greatest in the world either. So it definitely doesn't help to get better. But but I can tell you there's some flu going on because when I go to get a coffee or something, I can fucking hear people
Oh, sure,
coughing like crazy. So there was definitely that.
sure.
I'm feeling better, way better now. I'm just like at the end of it, so
Good, good.
a couple of more days, I'll be fine.
All right.
Cool, man. I'm so glad I actually had you on our
Thanks for
cafe
having me.
finally.
This was fun.
Yeah, we should do it. We should do it again sometime in the future.
Dude, when you have time.
Yeah,
Just,
let's
yeah,
do it. Let's
yeah,
do
yeah.
it.
Cool, cool.
Cool. Thanks for everyone who decided to join. And
Yeah.
obviously watch us live, and then whoever is watching was kind enough to went through the whole episode to actually hear me talking right now. Thank you for that as well. If you enjoy the show, subscribe, motherfuckers.
Subscribe,
Hit that
motherfucker.
like button, share it everywhere so it can become so I can start monetizing that shit and get my Bugatti money finally, for fuck's
Fuck
sake.
yeah.
No, I'm gonna keep doing that. Gonna keep doing that for sure. There's a couple more guests coming up. Obviously gonna keep posting about that, but otherwise, have a good night, guys, and till next time. Bye
Good night.
bye.
Good night.